Yes. All right. My event is starting. All right, I think now, yes, we should be live now. I'll double check as we go. Sorry for a little bit of a delayed start here. This is a difficult thing to do, producing a show while actually having to talk and prepare it and make sure it works okay. All right, yeah, we're live. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to youtube.com/Chris Spags. I'll probably also be running this on my podcast feed, so pretend I said my podcast feed as well. But basically, it's a situation today. This is officially 2 years to the date in which I publicly was shamed, and I guess also publicly did some shaming of my own. Incidentally, I guess, so I'll take you guys back to it. If you're not familiar, and hopefully you are, if you somehow landed upon this channel, or if you just came here from my Twitter or whatever it may be. Also, I probably should retweet that from my podcast Twitter. So 2 years ago, I woke up the day after Memorial Day, and the situation was one in which I was just trying to get a blog post out before I went to the office for the day. It was a spot where I would work from home. I would get stuff going just in my apartment before I would head into the office, get my first blog post in, make sure that I kind of had my stuff buttoned up, because my job at Barstool was based upon driving traffic and kind of writing, like, I wouldn't say high quality blog posts, but blog posts that would appeal to people outside of the Barstool universe and also would appeal to people, I guess, inside that world. So you kind of have the jokes that work, but also you're touching upon like viral content type things. So in this particular case, one thing I talked about the day after Memorial Day, again, not thinking it through, there were some photos that went viral of Rihanna, and I'm going to try to bounce back and forth here. You can see one screenshot I have. I have a mix here of screenshots and links. You can also see here the adorable little Wolverine photo I have of myself reflecting upon the 1 year anniversary last year. But you can see also the photo there of Rihanna, and as you can see, you know, nothing that crazy. And I think this is the part of the whole situation that I'm surprised by, or was surprised by from the jump. Look, it's not a flattering photo. I think we can all agree there. I think you might be able to see my mouse pointer right now. Like, not the most flattering photo of Rihanna, like, but in a way which is one that it's not that bad. And I thought that was something that would be obvious from the jump, that okay, this is a girl who's known. We've seen her body in a million different ways. We've seen her on music videos. We've seen her, you know, on Instagram putting them tits out for the boys. I think we've seen her enough ways to know, like, all right, that's what Rihanna looks like. She's a beautiful woman. She's attractive. And this is not me sucking up, by the way. This is just my assumption going into writing this blog post that morning. Again, brain addled after a holiday weekend. This is my thought process. So throughout the weekend, I had seen these screenshots and not screenshots, these articles. And also I had a friend who saw Rihanna while in Soho in New York City and was like, hey, like, did you know that Rihanna's like looking kind of fat these days? And I was like, huh. That's a strange thing, but sure. So then you combine these two things. I'm like, okay, this is like a good kind of clickbaity article to write, one that should kind of have some value. And what I would find out was that, so this is one article that existed before I wrote mine. Pop sensation Rihanna is getting real thick, so thick that some people on social media are now calling her a BBW, shock pics. So a lot of people doing this kind of approach where it's like, oh, other people are saying this, other people are doing that. Oh boy, I'm going through the... some of these stuff I have in my fucking Rihanna folder, not from having sex with Rihanna, but because I don't know what else to title a folder of your life's biggest failure. But this is one that is mine. So in my fucking Rihanna folder, which you could see, actually, I think I can move it down, maybe not. But if you could see my URL somehow as part of this process, you could see that the folder is in fact on my desktop, fucking space Rihanna. it's because really to me, this situation, more than any, was one that was a self-inflicted wound, but one that bothers me a lot because at the time, like, obviously, I take stuff like super liberally in general. Like that was my thing when I was at Barstool. A lot of people were like, oh, Spags is such a liberal. He's just so like I wrote about pro Ferguson stuff. I wrote like about a pro trans wedding. I wrote about like adorable Down syndrome kids like doing cool stuff. And like, that's sort of what I find great. Like I find the stuff that kind of, to quote an old BuzzFeed article, like restores my faith in humanity. That's the stuff that I really find the most appealing. And what has happened is this is what I'm known for now, is this stuff. But even though like these articles all came out, again, before mine came out, Thick Gal Riri, Twitter goes crazy over Rihanna's new curves. So they're using the positive spin, but in reality, they're just trying to get the same clicks. They're trying to get that, oh yeah, like Rihanna's not looking great. Here's another one for you from Yahoo, which also one big mistake I made was not just quoting all of these. This was one I definitely saw over the weekend. Yahoo Beauty fans are praising Rihanna for getting thick. So saying the exact same thing that I said in obviously a much less eloquent way than I did. Obviously a more like pro-female way, a more pro like beauty website kind of way. Like I totally get that. And that's the approach that these sites have. But ultimately they're doing the same thing. Like to me as a blogger, your job, you're a carnival barker. You're a person who's standing outside this thing and you're like, hey, like come check this out. Like come this way, come view this thing, come view the bearded lady. And that's what your job is with internet content. It's to be the Vince McMahon, to be the P.T. Barnum, to be the guy who's like pointing to all the sideshows. And that's what they did, but they did it in this way where it's like fans are praising her. Fans are curious about her new BBW look, all that. So it was a situation that I thought it was proofed enough because I assumed like it's going viral. Other people are talking about it. It seems like something that would be safe to talk about and at least make fun of because again, this is a woman who to me commoditizes sex, is popularized like nip piercings. Like that's her. Like you would maybe give some credit to Kendall Jenner, but she's really the one who put like nip piercings front and center for a lot of people. And I think that you're allowed to kind of criticize a person when they're commoditizing sexuality, when they're sort of putting themselves out there in that way. Like she's a powerful person. She's a person who I think you can poke fun of. And I think the thing I didn't fully expect, even though I knew it, was just how angry people would get. And obviously, here are the articles that existed before it. You could see also, here are some of the responses I got, which you could imagine. So this is a normal one. Hey, you're way out of line. I'm so out of line, obviously, with a joke blog about a situation, making fun of influencer culture. And that was really the goal of the blog. I don't have the blog anymore. Obviously, if you followed the story at all, Barstool pulled it because there were a lot of mitigating factors, which I wasn't fully aware of at the time. But it's because they were negotiating with ESPN for the show that they had there, which was one bad factor. And also, like, I think they were still kind of not sure about the brand and how to handle getting heat, especially getting heat for me. I'm a person who really, like, I don't go out of my way to be an attention whore. I don't go out of my way to kind of be that person. So for them, you know, they took it down. So I don't have all the jokes and stuff in there. And I'm sure you can read them if you want. There was a joke about a sumo suit, which was quoted ad nauseum that people can I'm sure, look up and feel great about. But yeah, so that's a normal reply. Here are some other replies that I got. You are typical white trash. I think you could tell looking at me, I am far from typical white trash. In fact, I am not largely, I'm a small part non-white. I am Puerto Rican at part. I'm mostly Italian, which I would say generally would not be typical white trash. But it kind of immediately took on this racial tone, and I really didn't know what to do. Like, I think I tweeted one thing about it. Actually, here was my initial tweet of it. Hold up. Again, this presentation part is hard. Oh, here we go. Something tells me that you don't have to worry about whether Rihanna or Ashley Graham are attracted to you, dear sir. And then, okay, that's a perfectly fine burn. I agree. They shouldn't probably have to worry about that either because they're attractive, super attractive women. I'm a cultural critic for a job. Like, it's certainly not two sides of the same coin. But this is why nobody likes white men. That seems like a strong one to me. I don't know. That's just me, though, as a person who, has grown up in the South Bronx, has grown up around black friends who've had bad times, who tries to sort of help people of all races as much as possible, really without discrimination. Like, I've had a lot of situations in my life in which friends have, have been assaulted, like in one case, assaulted by police. I have one friend who was going in Harlem, going to visit his grandmother, and he's a 6'2", 300-pound black guy, give or take. I mean, I don't want to round up his weight. He's a heavy-set black guy, we just say that. And he was assaulted in a hallway or in a stairwell in Harlem in his grandmother's building because they were looking for a 5'6", 120-pound black guy who had committed a crime nearby. And like, that shit sucks. I have another friend who was in Long Island and was going to a party with his other black friend in a white neighborhood, and a cop pulled them over and was like, hey, where are you boys going? They're like, oh, we're going to this person's house. And the cop's like, I don't think they would want you there. Like, you're going to get out of town now, and made them like get out of town, basically followed them to the county line of whatever Long Island town they were in. And so like, to me, it definitely sort of sucked. More than sort of sucked. It actively sucked that like, this is sort of what it comes down to, is people just being super racist against me and being like weird with the white trash. You can see probably as I'm looking through the previews here to make sure I have the ones, but fuck you and make karma come for you and your family again because of a joke made about a pop star. And this, to be clear, like, it's going to get worse. There's some other ones, and these are just the ones I saved, by the way. Like, at a certain point I blocked it out. I also blocked out all of the like blue check mark people who immediately reply, because it's not about the actual thing you do. It's about them getting some sort of satisfaction, also getting some heat, looking like the concerned person on Twitter. The amount of like media person who you don't know who just piles on with their blue check marks. And look, I'm verified on Twitter. I love having my blue check mark. It makes me feel really special. I have so little value in life that that blue check mark means so much. But for them, I don't like Twitter. Like I don't like going on Twitter. People are super negative. People are mean. People are like whatever. I'm also just not enough of a narcissist to go into that thing. But like, these people who were coming at me were people who were just looking for attention and looking for justification. And then there are people like this who are like sending you gun pictures and sending you like super aggressive shit. You sad little white pig, coming from a white girl. Like, what? Why? Like, why is that the thing? There was nothing, not a single thing in that blog that was said about her race. Not a single thing that was said about her as a human being. But yet all the attacks were like this, like really mean, like hurtful shit, like racial shit. This was me tweeting just some of the funny screenshots because I just thought it was funny that I was getting this reaction initially. And like I made a joke tweet about Rihanna fans did not like my blog calling her fat, and now I'm being cyberbullied. And that was just me having a moment of like, all right, I really don't know what to do with this, but like I have to push back a little and also share what I'm seeing because I hope for all of your sakes, literally every person out there who's watching this either on YouTube as I'm doing it live, or if you're watching it after the fact. First of all, if you're watching this, I hope you hit that like button because the like button helps me out, get the YouTube going. But also, I hope nobody ever experiences this, honestly, because for me especially, like having gone through this at the time I did, a few months later, I ended up seeing as I was driving across the country, and I'll talk about, I guess, a specific story, all the Me Too stuff happened. And like, that is a real fucking thing. Like, that's not a joke in a blog about a pop star looking bad in a photo. And really, like, my jokes in that blog didn't land, and the point I wanted to make wasn't quite as well found as it should have been. I fully accept my part in that. Like, as my job as a writer, even if it is the first thing you write after Memorial Day weekend and you're fucking hungover and you're dying and you feel like death and you're going into the office, you don't want to be in the office, like, I should have like covered my bases better with that and had the jokes have more of a point. But ultimately, it was just about influencer culture and about like a photo that to me was just, again, go back, look, not great. but yes, Wolverine's hand will point to you. It's not a great photo, but it's still not that deep. And I think that's the thing to me that I just assume people would get, but not in the modern culture. And like, I think the thing to me is just really that these people are so, they're just so adamant about it. And so like their way is the only way and their viewpoint is the only viewpoint. And I think, and I know for a fact too, like we didn't get more traffic on that blog than a normal blog that I would do. And that's what happens on social media is the tweet goes out from the Barstool handle, the tweet goes out from my handle, people find it and reply to it. Those people were not even reading the blog. They were just reading the headline, which admittedly was a little too sharp. The is Rihanna going to make being fat the hot new trend? Look, that's a strong, like a direct clickbait title. I get it, but it really didn't paint. I mean, it actually did paint a picture of what was in the blog, which is about the fact that, hey, here's this woman who's shaping the culture in front of us, and her one bad photo could set off this whole avalanche of girls taking bad photos, and then you use absurdist points like, you know, comparing her to the Hindenburg perhaps, or saying that it looks like she's wearing a sumo suit. Neither of those things are true, which again, you can tell by looking at this photo. Does that look like the Hindenburg to you? Would Wolverine be stroking a Hindenburg? No, of course not. Wolverine would probably be fighting it off. I mean, he can't die, so he's having a great time with it. But overall, like, I just thought there was a certain obviousness to things that clearly the world did not. And I think that was something which I just wasn't prepared for. Here's some more ones. Oh, this is a good one. So here's where the actual death threats come in. I genuinely hope you are killed. One like from this girl. That is really a thing people say. And like, to me, like, people, like, dying is a fucking serious thing. But the fact that you would wish death upon people to that degree, like, it's so gross, man. And when you're inside the eye of the storm, it just feels so surreal, especially as a person who like really does try to be humane, has historically given money to homeless people, sometimes to the point where they abuse it. Where one time in college, I gave a homeless guy $10 outside of the grocery store I went to. And as I went in there, finished my grocery shop and got my shitty pizza rolls or whatever the fuck I was eating in college, went to the alcohol section to get alcohol because I was also in college. And then this guy had been like, yeah, like, I'm just so hungry, man. Just want to go in there, get food. I'm like, yeah, hey, great story. Like, here's your $10. I probably didn't say great story. That might've been a bit patronizing. But I remember seeing that guy in the alcohol section and being like, hey man, I thought you were like getting food. And he just like grunted at me and like shrugged off. But that's me in a nutshell. It's like, I want to believe the best in people. I want to believe that homeless dude is going to get a 6-foot Subway sub or like, you know, a 6-inch or whatever. 6 feet would be great, but any sort of length Subway sub, that's what I'm hoping for from that dude. And to kind of have this be the reaction to like what's fundamentally a joke, what's fundamentally, here we go, here's another fun racist one. You deserve these lashings, white devil. Why is it? I mean, I get it. You're a person who comes off as mostly white. I am fair skinned, even though I may have whatever Latino blood or Asian blood or whatever the fuck is in my adoptive side of my family that I don't know. I wasn't adopted. My dad was. But like, nonetheless, for this to be the default people go to with their reactions and just such vitriol and such hate in a way where it's like hate for sport. It's not hate for like, here's a point. Here's me saying something. Here's me really doing something to get outside of my comfort zone. It was just me just making a joke about a person who's super popular. And that was the most surreal part overall. Like that and the fact that, you know, I'm obviously getting texts from people who are like, what did you do? What did you do? And it's overall like obviously a very weird situation. And one, again, I really wouldn't wish on anybody because you feel like people make you feel like you're the worst. There's one screenshot, which I unfortunately don't have on my computer, which I should have, but I posted it at some point. Did I post it or did they find it? So I was casted, or they were attempting to cast me for a special on MTV Catfish, not because I was catfished by a girl, but because they were going to do a special on internet trolls and anonymous internet trolls and how they do things. And they had either stumbled upon or I had posted it on Twitter at some point, a screenshot of a dude on Instagram whose handle was like rude boy something. And he had photos of himself and he was like a probably a late 30s Caribbean looking man, adult man who was like, I will break into your house and kill your dogs, slit your dogs' throats in front of you and murder you. And it's like, what? Like that's an adult man who cares that much about a pop star. And then you're also doing that, like threatening, like that's an actual threat. And then Catfish found that. And then I went through the whole casting process because again, like for me at this point, it was just like, this is really fucking weird. What am I doing with this? How do I do with anything with this? And I went through that whole casting process with them. And as part of that casting process, so you do like a Skype session thing where they make sure you're like, I don't know, they have a lot of ugly people on there, so I guess it's not an ugly thing, but make sure that you can talk and that you can kind of, I don't know, can communicate, whatever it may be. But then they make you go to a psych evaluation thing, which I had to do mine at some airport hotel. I forget, I think it was like JFK, maybe it was Newark, I forget. But I met the person there. They sent the car service. I went out there, had this session with like a therapist where they talk to you. You do like a very long, like 500 question quiz thing. And then she was like, oh, like she was actually, I think, confused by how unbothered I was by it all. But like ultimately, what am I gonna just fucking cry all the time? But the other dude, the rude boy guy who would threaten to break into my house and slit my dog's throats in front of me, he did not pass psych evaluation. It may shock you to learn. And that's really one part of this that I fully learned firsthand was that you are subject to the whims of a lot of crazy people when you're in the limelight. And that's the same thing if you're an average person who kind of has a following, or if you're a person who's going through something like this, who, you had an experience, something went south, you did something that pissed people off. You are getting really deranged people in a way that's super toxic and actually a little bit scary. And, I'm not a person who would go to the cops because like, ultimately I find it hard to believe someone would seek me out and murder me over my, over a blog. I would find that hard to believe. It's not like I drew a picture of Muhammad in the blog, though. If fat Rihanna and a drawing of Muhammad in the same photo would be problematic. I think that might be something I would want to avoid, but it wasn't like, to me, it just wasn't that deep. It was just like, how do people not get that this is not only like a joke, and whether you agree with the quality of the joke or not, as my boss at the time didn't, or didn't enough to back me up, because we'll talk about that in a second. But it was a thing that I really felt like it was obvious that it was super satirical, and also just crystal clear that this is, again, I'll go back to the fucking Wolverine photo. It's just a fucking normal looking, like, bad photo where you just like went to a buffet the day before and had a little bit too much on the carb side, and then you woke up and you're like, fuck, this photo looks bad to me. And I think you can do that when a person is like the most famous pop star in the world. And unfortunately, you couldn't do that, and no amount of things would change that. I don't have any sort of visual thing for this part, but so the thing to me, I was suspended on like as part of a radio show where somebody had called in about it. My boss at the time had made a decision to suspend me, and then came out and said that, and I was like, okay. And then, so when he said that, I think I just packed up and left. And I tweeted, actually, I should probably find a tweet. Spinner.com, Chris Spags, Teen Vogue. Maybe that'll come up. Nope, maybe not on regular. Damn it, it was a good burn. But I actually had a typo on it, so that also kind of bothered me in hindsight. Oh, here we go. Here's the tweet. Breaking, my boss can't handle getting called out in Cosmo and that he's trying to fuck anyone who reads Teen Vogue. So I think that's a perfectly good line, as you could see by the amount of likes and retweets there. But like, to me, at that point, it was just like, okay, how do I deflect the attention? Because this is so fucking dumb, and I could try to like maybe make it some other way. And around this point too, like that was when I stormed out of the office. I remember I was writing that as I was walking around the block of our office, really fucking pissed. And I had people like talking to me because like we had talked about the situation beforehand, literally, I think maybe a few hours beforehand, before my boss went on the radio show and was like, you're suspended. And he was like, listen, just lay low. Like, you're not writing anything for a little bit. Like, you're not writing any girl content right now. Just like lay low. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That was what my marching orders were. Like, basically just keep doing your job, keep going. And when you then kind of pivot and then go on a radio show and make me look like shit, and the whole thing was designed because of them working on the ESPN deal, because of also the personal stuff with my boss at the time. It was a thing that I guess it just all kind of piled up for them, where they just knew it was safer to throw me under the bus. And I also think too, at that point, they assumed I was just going to take it and not leave and certainly not do anything. And then I went on a tour of like historical spots that I guess were related to Barstool content and specifically related to my boss, and took photos in front of them, like suspension day 1, suspension day 2. I went to Soul Cycle, which was a place in which my boss at the time was publicly cucked by a worker there. And I also went to Cheese Boy, which is a now abandoned cheese stand. It's in the greater New York area. I think it was in Connecticut. And I went there and took a photo in front of there. So I tried to make it fun. I tried to make it work. But like in reality, this whole time I was like, I'm really fucking pissed at this and I want to leave. And this also came shortly after I had a show called Swipe Drunk Love, which if you're watching this or listening to this, you probably know about it. It was like a dating podcast that was honestly doing fairly well for what it was. It was a Facebook Live show, which we weren't allowed to put on iTunes, weren't allowed to promote in a meaningful way. And it was still getting views. It was getting views going against the NBA draft. It was getting views going, or the NFL draft rather, getting views going against March Madness, like doing enough. We were like really working hard to make sure it had enough. My pal, Alyssa Rose, was wearing the most cleavage bearing shirts to get attention. And that show had gotten canceled over an email from my boss where he was like, on a day I wasn't in the office too, which felt deliberate, even though who knows, because he's always been a scattershot kind of guy mentally. So I don't want to believe that was like a willful thing. But it did feel to me like a bit with WWE where CM Punk sued them once and they sent him his release from the company on the day he was going to get married. And it sort of felt like that to me, where it's like, oh, you're not in the office today, so we're going to cancel your show and then not talk to you about it. So like I was already heated about it. So then you add that, you took away one thing I enjoyed, one thing that was kind of adding to my I don't say clout, but like adding to my persona, giving me a lane that I could actually create content and be happy with. That was also good. Like if you're watching this right now, maybe you don't realize it. Pretty good at hosting shows. I'm pretty good at talking, pretty good at running the whole thing and preparing and producing and doing that whole thing. And it sucked to have that happen. So then when this happened, and then it's like, oh, you're going to be fine, like just lay low. And then you come out and you're like, okay, you're suspended. And then also when I leave, then they're like, why are you not coming into the office? Like, you guys said I'm suspended, so like I'm just gonna be on vacation, like doing this content thing. Like I spent a lot of money like renting cars and shit to do the stupid suspension photos I did, because I was like, look, here's something which at least gives me some notoriety, gives me some sort of like attention, allows me to keep a part of the audience, because at that point I was feeling very strongly like I wanted to leave. And by the end of that suspension period, during this period as well, I had talked to other companies because I knew I wanted to leave because I was just really unhappy with everything. And obviously I just kind of wanted a fresh start, because it was really fucked up how I got thrown under the bus in my mind. And you may disagree if you have any sort of stake in the thing. But for me, it just like, I had really put myself on the line for Barstool as a company. I had defended kind of the ethos of the company, the sort of pirate ship thing where like I had a startup, a site called Guyism, which if you're on this YouTube channel, it was initially a Guyism YouTube channel. And it was one where we made some edgy jokes, but ultimately we played it safer and closer to the vest. And I always respected how Barstool didn't do that and was unafraid of things. And then, you combine all these factors. It's like, okay, like there's some weird personal things where you're kind of burying me. Maybe, let's say, because my boss and I had hooked up with the same girl at some point. He didn't like her being in the office. I don't know where I could get that concept from, but let's say that was a thing that had occurred, and you want to be shitty to me because of that. And to be clear, this is in the past. Like I think I've buried the hatchet with Dave, my old boss, but who fucking knows? They also can't talk about me because that was part of the deal I signed when I went back in, because they wanted to bring me back. And at this point, I had talked to other male lifestyle sites who had been interested in me and wanted to take me on. And then one, I'll just say it, the Chive got afraid because they were like, well, Dave's going to bash us and we're not going to look cool anymore. And I think those guys have done a great job building a brand, but they are the most like, you got super lucky and now you're like terrified of losing that stake in it. And now they're losing the stake naturally, sort of. I mean, I think there's still Chive fans out there. They still have merch. They still have like a video business. So they're doing stuff like, I think great for them. Those guys were mostly cool, but they literally were afraid of not looking cool and afraid of getting buried by my old boss. So when I went in, and I also then, I guess one other conversation I had, which is relevant to the thing, as this all was happening, I had talked to somebody who worked in TV, who I was connected through, who had followed my work at Barstool and was a fan of my writing. And I was like, listen, this situation is so bizarre, and to me it feels like a TV show. Could you help me like get this TV show going? So I was going to start writing a sitcom script, and I was like, fuck it, man. Like, this guy is really a noteworthy person and was very helpful to me as much as he could be. He worked on the drama side of TV as a director for some very noteworthy people. I won't spill his thing. But he also, his agent at CAA was the head of TV at CAA. So basically got me to the highest possible rung of person, and was like, and he thought my script was good. He's like, he knew the universe, and basically it was a script based upon a fictional version of myself and a fictional version of Barstool. And it was about the premise of, what happens when this situation happens in a sitcom? And the whole point of it to me was that, like, okay, you do this as the premise, but there's a different outcome. It's like, everybody kind of learns from it, and like, I don't leave in a huff. Like, it would just gave me a chance to kind of paint a picture I wanted to paint. And again, I had that interest right away, so I was like, fuck it, man, I can leave. And I wanted to leave, obviously, as you might have gathered. I was really fed up. I'm also a person who, I would say, I do think things through, but I also can land on an outcome and really dig my heels in on that outcome. And when I left, it was because I just was like dead set on it. From the moment I think I had left the office that day and sent that tweet, it was, how do I make this work? And that was another part of it too, where I didn't know how to make it work. And people actually DM me and were like offering advice on one person who's affiliated with somebody who is known for being I'm the conservative guy and I poke at the libs. And it's not Jesse Ventura, even though that was a great Jesse Ventura impression. A guy who fits that criteria, who you probably know of on social media, and somebody who works in his organization, or I don't even know, works directly, but is related to the organization, was like, well, here's the roadmap he used. And if you were a person who were like saying, oh, the media, the libs have gotten me and you can do that. And like, what am I really going to do? I guess somebody who's generally liberal, at least in terms of human issues and stuff like that, and supports like all the trans stuff and all the abortion. Please, the more abortions, the merrier. That's always been my attitude. And I think just the whole persona wouldn't work for me, but that's sort of what the options were. Like, how do you commoditize it? And the more appealing option here is like, okay, if I could write a TV show and maybe like, do some consulting on the side, doing some content consulting, maybe some like freelance work, whatever it may be, I'll be fine. And that was my approach. So when Barstool had offered to bring me back, I was just like, no, like, I don't want to be back. You guys made me feel really bad about myself. Like, you guys really have been shady to me. You also put me in a situation before. The one-on-one basketball game I had to play for Barstool was because the guy who I played against had called me a faggot while out at a bar, while blackout drunk after a night in which he talked about leaving his family because he wanted to look cool to all his younger coworkers. So as somebody who comes from a broken home, and also as somebody who is very much not gay, that remains true, but also like supports gay people and thinks they should be able to do what they want, I'm not cool being called an F-bomb, and I'm not cool with it, but I didn't want to put the company in a bad light. So when they put me on the radio, and without any provocation, without any notice, it was a situation where it's like, okay, I now have to be the bad guy because I can't say that the senior management person called me a faggot while drunk and blackout at a bar on a night in which he was also fucking ripping coke and smashing things that, like, it's just, I'm aware of this stuff. Like, I'm aware of like how a company looks, and even though it may not seem like it, I'm aware of how I look in things. So I didn't mind being a bad guy for the sake of content. But also at that point, like, I've taken so many slings and arrows for you, for you as a company, for them as a company at the time. And it hurt me to then just be like, all right, well, you suck and you're not funny and you weren't even meant to do this job. Like, cool, you had no problem getting all the traffic I'd created for literal years where I was the top traffic driving guy, along with some other people who did great work. And that's not to undercut anybody there, but it's just like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to reach audiences. I know how to like package content. I know how to do all that stuff. So like I did well there because of that. But also, like, it just was never appreciated in a way that, and I think that hurt. Like, that honestly, so it hurts me now to talk about it. Like, I don't think this will be a show where I cry, but it is a show that, like, it just sucks. And so yeah, they gave me that shot to get out. I think the timing on this one, no, this is when I was still on suspension. So here you can see it's NBA Finals time, and actually the Warriors are playing in the finals again, conveniently enough. And you can see the headline here, which I've had up in the background for too long because I didn't fucking plan the visual part out well enough. But don't take your eye off the ball. Rihanna flashes her cleavage in a plunging black top as she heckles Golden State Warriors player Kevin Durant during the NBA Finals. So she's at the NBA Finals. Maybe looking a little bit thick there too. I don't know. She's having a world tour of probably just having a lovely weekend, going wild with it. But so this whole article is about her and Kevin Durant, and it's all fine. Kevin Durant yelled back at her. Really, I will forever be a Kevin Durant defender because at this time in my life, I appreciated him going back at her. So this whole article, a very long Daily Mail article, and Daily Mail, here we go, just it's still going. And then boom, all of a sudden, meanwhile, a sports reporter who earned the ire of the internet after calling Rihanna fat and writing a whole article about it has been suspended after inspiring tremendous backlash. On Tuesday, Barstool Sports published a 350-word rant. You'll also notice on a lot of these articles, I'll show you another one, a lot of these articles really love saying tirade and rant and stuff like that. And it was not a tirade nor a rant. It was a blog post. As bloggers do, it was a blog post. But yeah, so this was in there, and I'm just literally scrolling this on my phone, like, are you fucking serious? Like, you can't let it die. And that was really also a part that I took the most umbrage with, was that, like, the situation probably would have died faster if my boss didn't do the suspension thing, if he didn't try to make it into a thing where he just had to like make me look bad, and perhaps again because of the personal issues involving a girl. Hard to say, but that is a thing that it did occur and was not my favorite. It was not the most professional in how I viewed it. Definitely not the most professional after telling me just lay low and it'll be cool. Like, you don't tell me lay low and be cool and then act like an asshole directly to me and just make me look bad publicly. To me, that's just not how business should be done, and not business should be done with a person who was like a loyal soldier and added actual value across a variety of ways and did everything that was asked of me from day one. So it sucked. And other parts of it that sucked, I guess, continue to suck, honestly, because Rihanna has used this story multiple times to go back, like to just get bites of the apple with press-wise. So she's talked about like body shaming and whatever, and how she has these issues with it. And she also posted this Instagram post while it was going viral. So it was directly at me. She didn't tag me in it, which would have been cool. I guess I would have probably gotten more death threats, but would have also probably gotten some followers out of it. But bad girl Riri, if you can't handle me at my 2007 Gucci Mane, you don't deserve me at my 2017 Gucci Mane. So again, she's, oh, look, the little crying emoji. Oh, she's so sad. But the point is that, like, so you're fat shaming another person to do... there were so many logical inaccuracies and hypocrisies along the way that this is honestly, like, if you found this link, you probably saw it because I tweeted it, or maybe you just climbed on the YouTube channel, which is great. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. But I don't tweet and I don't post to Instagram that much because of this shit. Like, this is the sole reason why I really dislike social media. And the death threats are one thing, but it's also just like the constant need for one-upsmanship and the constant need for reflecting the light back on yourself, and like, you know, good for her, like really good for her. She owns her brand. I've learned after the fact, like I mentioned, she's had this in the news 4 times since the situation happened, where she's had like promoted her Fenty beauty line or her whatever. And she's promoted it by talking about, like, not about me directly, but about talking about the situation and talking about like how, you know, like I had people, like I've had white men and it's like, what, like how, this is so not that deep and so low on the list of things that have occurred to her, I'm sure, in her life. It just fucking baffled my mind. And then the media coverage of it too was also really fun. So basically, as you might guess by the situation, and me talking about it, I was not fired. I left on my own volition. I'm sure it didn't hurt them in any way because they were, again, just trying to make it look like to ESPN, like, oh, we're like, don't worry, we're a good company now. And like, and they did that too. And another article, which I'll show you in a second, which I'm actually pretty, I got one update today, which I didn't know, but I'll share with you in a second. But sites like this Revelist site, which I've never heard of in my life, they all pile on for SEO traffic and for search traffic and for social traffic. And they have in here, they wrote that I was fired, even though like, this is when I was suspended initially too. So it wasn't even before I left. It wasn't even before I took a buyout. And ooh, yeah, I did, by the way, did get paid. So that was also part of it, but they're not paying me now. So nah. But also still, like, I'm still not going to bury him, but I'm just going to talk about it honestly about what happened to me. Like, I fucked up. I think they fucked up. I don't think they would ever acknowledge they fucked up, but I think they did. And I think some of their traffic numbers may also reflect that they fucked up a little bit, at least in the short term. But anyway, it was just, to me, like, it showed how poorly reported everything is. So many articles just call me Chris Spags, even though, like, obviously eventually they found or figured out my real name. And like, some sites just used my old LinkedIn photo, which was me in like a suit, like looking like off in the distance, like I fucking had accomplished something. It was just like the strangest thing, but also one as somebody who went to journalism school. And yeah, I worked at Barstool. I worked at a site called Guyism. I haven't ever been a reporter or anybody super credible in that respect, but like, I know how journalism works, and I know you should actually be checking sources, and I know you should be like contacting those sources and asking them things. And it was just sites like this that exist for no reason to have some unprofessional writer, Maria E. Fisher, who I'm sure is a fucking scum pig. Oh yeah, cool face. Cool arms, you fucking, with your hanging Italian deli meat arms. Fucking die in a fire, Maria. See how I'm doing the same thing they did to me. Don't die in a fire, but just get like singed in a fire, Maria E. Fisher. Your site sucks, and so do you. J14 magazine. Yeah, you're killing it, Maria. Anyway, so it really kind of soured me on the whole media experience. So now we're talking about, I've been soured on the media experience. I've been soured in terms of Twitter. I've been soured in terms of social media. I've been soured in terms of black people wanting to murder me. It's a tough situation. Lots of souring. Speaking of, hey, Bud Light, not a sponsor of this. But yeah, it just sucked to be like misreported on, to be misquoted. I mean, not even be quoted. Like, the only outlet that reached out to me straight up was Deadspin. And I didn't talk to them, didn't do anything bad, didn't sell out the company, even though they were dying for me to give them like a hit piece and something they could really latch onto on the record. I refused to do it. And that's sort of what the media was. Nobody reaches out to you. They just want to fucking burn you at the cross. And that's like a dark analogy to make, but that's what modern media is. And at least I think maybe it's slowed down a little bit, but that's what my experience was it was just them coming at you and also not reporting things correctly and just trying to make you look bad and make you look worse and attacking you like super aggressively with stuff like, I'll show you, there was this Observer one. Here, observer.com, Barstool, Rihanna fat shaming. Again, got to get that SEO in there. There were also a lot of URLs out there that had Rihanna fat pics in them because they were trying to get both sides of it. Because then you could run the Rihanna fat pics, but also you could be like, oh, this guy said that she looks fat, but do you think she looks fat? Talk about it in the comments. Like, it's such fucking internet culture, internet content stuff. Yeah, misogynistic diatribe. A fucking 300-word blog joking about influencer culture and about shit. Like, that's it. But anyway, thick Anna, whatever, man. But you could see how they frame things when they want to make you look bad. And again, with no regard for your background. And then months later, it would pop up again. And so this is the thing I didn't know about. So basically, there was a big feature on Barstool in the New York Times. And I was thrilled to find out that they had, in fact, violated our agreement because they had talked to them. Here's the part. Here we go. From some stuff, they're talking about misogyny, from Portnoy's rape jokes to posts like the one a blogger named Chris Spagnola wrote this summer saying, is Rihanna going to make being fat the hot new trend? The Rihanna incident highlighted how much things have changed since the Turner acquisition, but also how much stayed more or less the same. The post is quietly taken down, but Portnoy just blah, 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 went off. Yeah, and then they also at some point had said like that I was fired in there, but that part is taken out because I had to fucking submit a correction to the goddamn New York Times, the fucking most important media reporting outlet that we have, that I grew up with in fucking middle school. I went to like a middle school for gifted and talented minorities, funny, and impoverished people, because I am technically both those things. I grew up in the South Bronx. My family's poor. I am the furthest thing from white trash, and just more ghetto trash, I guess, if anything, but just a working class Italian family. That's what I grew up in an area of the Bronx that got ungentrified, I guess would be the way you would put it. And so I didn't know they actually did this. Like I had to follow up. I contacted the writer. The writer legit who still follows me on Twitter, and he's a dude who I think was sick of media stuff too. And he was like, I talked to him on the phone about it, and I was like, hey man, like this is wrong, and you didn't ask me, and what happened there? And he's like, oh, they told me that they fired you. I'm like, so that was also a violation of the agreement we had, where I could have sued them over it. But I was just like, what the fuck? Because like they weren't allowed to talk about me at all, but they also weren't quoted on it because they lied to the media about it because they wanted to look like, oh, like we're a company of action, even though the reality was they wanted to bring me back under a pseudonym and have me keep writing and doing the same traffic generating content, which just wouldn't have worked in a million different ways because people would identify my writing style. People would know I was still employed there, and the fans of the site would be like, well, why are you censoring him? And then people on the outside would be like, why are you allowing him to, like, it just would have been terrible for everybody. So that was also a big part of why I left. But I didn't know that they actually had this correction in there. And this correction, I'll read it out loud because honestly, this, like, seeing this today, not a lot about the Rihanna situation. It may shock you. Not a lot around it brings me joy. But this one here, correction, November 16, 2017. So 2 days after the article, I guess I didn't see it and nobody ever pinged me about it. But after I'd sent them both the exit agreement that I had with Barstool, which showed everything about how I was voluntarily leaving and all this stuff and how they were paying me and all this stuff to be quiet about it, and also how they couldn't talk shit about me because our senior management couldn't talk shit about me because I knew, because of that Chive situation, I knew that companies were going to get scared off about Dave maybe like being mean to them or whatever. So I knew that was a safeguard I needed as well. So I got that negotiated, they had their lawyers do it. It was like a whole fucking thing. But correction, November 16, 2017, an earlier version of this article about the media company Barstool Sports relying on information from company representatives misstated the circumstances on which one of its bloggers, Chris Spagnuolo, left the company last spring. Following a brief suspension, his departure occurred when the company and Spagnuolo could no longer agree on the terms of his continued employment. He was not fired. Not fired. I will say that loud in a kind of alien sounding voice. Not fired. It fucking sucks that people think you're fired. It especially fucking sucks that people think that you were fired from the most toxic place on the internet in terms of perception. Not a thing I believe, but that's a perception on the outside. That was what happened when I got hired there. And friends who I had known for years online, who had been a fan of the content at Guyism, a similar site, the second I was at Barstool, they unfollowed me. Some of them blocked me. Real fucking weird shit. So, it's just like, it sucked, man. It just, the whole thing sucked. And then to have that months later again, where it's like, all right, I feel like I'm finally out of the clear, and I'm not out of the clear. And it's tough because like, I didn't want to lean into it. Like I told you guys, like I just disappeared from social media for a while. Like I basically had PTSD, and I'm not trying to make light of that. Like there's people who fucking battled and fought for this country and who have PTSD, and that's super serious. Like there are fucking abused dogs who have PTSD. Like I love, like my dogs are in the background. You can't see them. Fucking love them more than anything. But because, you know, they don't judge you when you accidentally fat shame someone. You're still giving them treats, still giving them belly rubs. They're good. But, you know, it was just this thing where it's like, all right, I am just like being shit on by everywhere. And every time I think I'm clear of it, it doesn't get clear. And also this came a month after I had moved out to California. And part of the reason I moved out to LA, as I mentioned, I was pitching that TV show, had a lot of great feedback, had a lot of interest from the agent guy I had talked to. And then as I was driving across the country, got a call on my CarPlay. I'm literally going through, I think I was going from New Mexico to Vegas. And I'm driving just like a barren road, and all the Me Too stuff had started hitting. Harvey Weinstein stuff came through. All the other ones started coming through. So they were like, yeah, like if you have another pitch, we'd love to talk to you about it. But right now, the companies that we were talking to about this don't want to do a show about white men behaving badly. And I was like, fuck, man. And the script I'd even written deliberately, I'd written a script that was obviously a fictional version of Barstool, but it was like a diverse one. Like there's a Latino character, there's a black character. Like it's I mean, not that they're not diverse either, because they actually do have female employees, black employees. They have is there a Latino? There might be a Latino somewhere hiding in there. Not any Asian people, but actually no, one Asian guy who I like a lot is there. So yeah. It's a more diverse company than it seems, but that was the perception. So that was why the show died. Oh God, I have a burp. Sorry. Please don't give me death threats if I burp. But it was a thing where like, I felt like it was, the world had closed in on me, legitimately. Like everything I had tried and all the stuff I was building for, like that script took so long to write. And I wrote it with one of my buddies who then was going to move with me, and then like got cold feet because he got an offer for a really great job in another part of the country and in line with his career, and he works in law. So like it was either like leave law because you're unhappy, or stick with law because that's what you've done and the path you were on. So we ended up doing that. So I just moved out by myself with my dogs with the script, here to pitch it. And as I'm driving across the country, this guy who's legit like a top CIA agent who represents like super duper fucking absurd people was like, yeah, there's nothing we can do right now, but if you have some other stuff, send it along. But this one we can't do. And at that point, I was just so browbeaten by it. Like, I'd worked so hard on the script, which you can get, by the way, on my Patreon. I'm not trying to hawk it, but it's patreon.com/Chris Spags. If you go there, the full script is there on the Patreon. Maybe I'll repost it or something. I don't know. But I think it was a good script. I think it was still a script that represented the situation in a sitcom way. I just wanted to do a fucking version of The Office. That was all I wanted to do. I wanted to do a Jim Pam story, but a modern one where the characters were kind of scumbags. And I think it was a show that should have been made, and now I probably won't unless it's sitting on somebody's desk somewhere that gets unearthed. But it just sucks. The whole situation sucked, and I guess like I should have some sort of lessons from it. And to be honest, I have none. I think what I've learned, A, like choose your words more carefully. B, I don't know, should I apologize? Because I'll tell you what, I never apologized, and I don't think I would, because I don't stand by what I said. Like, I think fat shaming sucks. Like, I think you fat shame like a kid, you fat shame some little girl in high school. That's fucking awful, man. You fat shame, like, just make fun of somebody because that's like their thing that sucks about them. It's like a mean thing to do, and that's not something I would do. Maybe when I was younger, I would do that, and I honestly, in hindsight, feel bad about it. And if I could apologize or whatever, or like, I guess to those people, like, that I would feel bad about. But to a celebrity who commoditizes sexuality, who's like all about her nips and all about her ass, I think if you look like kind of bad in a photo, you can make a joke about how we all look bad in photos, and like, same as us. Like, that was the fucking point of it. But it just got missed. And I don't know that they're at this point, like, honestly, I could probably do a documentary about it where I'm like trying to meet Rihanna to apologize to her. There's probably still some juice to squeeze out of it, because again, people still fucking know this. People still sometimes like will comment on my Instagram something mean, or people will like try to troll me on Twitter over it. And it's just like, oh my God, like, can we move on? I've done so many fucking things. I do other things now. But you can't move on because you're known for what you're known for. And what I am known for is this thing, this comic misunderstanding, and me leaving in a huff and not sticking out so I could control the message and not look like I got fired. A million ways it could have gone better for me. And I guess all I would say to anybody out there, first of all, don't trust the fucking New York Times. Fucking fake news on top of fake news. That I learned firsthand. I could not believe how like lazy that reporting was from the fucking New York Times, and it just bothered me. It just sucks, man. Like, it just was really, I probably said that phrase too much. And despite all this, like, you could tell, like, it bothers me, but I'll still keep smiling. Like, I'll still keep going. I'll still keep making content. I maybe should have milked this one more. Maybe I could have done a million different things. I probably could be famous in some universe. Like, there's probably a Rick and Morty alternate timeline where like I somehow made this work for me the best possible way. Like, I apologized and then became an advocate for anti-fat shaming. And then I also started a fitness website targeting, like, I don't know, I could have done a million things that could have been better with it. And instead I did the path that I did. And that's that timeline. Not the best, but one where, I don't know, you deal with the consequences of what you do. I think a million people could have made this easier on me, but like both, people who were better at reporting, my employers could have been a little bit nicer, maybe not held weird personal grudges against me about shit I didn't even know about until long after I'd left the company. Maybe people could have not had as many death threats or immediately started calling me white trash and a white devil and wanting to murder me over a blog about a pop star. Maybe Harvey Weinstein could have not sexually assaulted people and ruined my shot at pitching a TV show about a company, or like, a fictional company that represented a tarnished brand. And that would have been the whole sales pitch. It's like, oh, it's the stuff you don't see, even though it's just going to be a fucking dumb sitcom that would have had a nice message at the end. The whole point was going to be for the sitcom, by the way, was my character just keeps failing upwards, and which, not to steal that phrase, but that is a phrase. And then the boss character was going to have some down times in the thing, and that was going to be how I was going to kind of level out the karma of it all. Was not making him look bad, but making him human, and making him like an actual human being in the show who had issues and kind of worked through them, and then overcame it because of being human and being like cool with other people, and letting them earn their way as they go. And that's not reality. That's why it's a TV show, or would have been a TV show, and that's why this is the world that I have. So it's almost NBA Finals time. So sorry for going a little bit long with this, but obviously this is like a big thing in my life. So it's a 2-year anniversary, so I'm going to cover it hopefully in a way where like I get to hear about it less. Maybe it would be nice, because it's really tiresome, man, to have people's first response to anything you do online be like, well, you were fired for, like, no, man, here's the New York Times, the greatest reporting in the world now that they have that correction. Yeah, I don't know. Life goes on. I guess that's all I could say. So, hey, if you're watching this, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please hit that like button as well if you're watching this after the fact. Also, please go to Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to my Untitled Chris Spags podcast. I'll have an audio version of this, I think, on there at some point. But I'll also have a new podcast on Saturday, which is free. I also have the Patreon, which I'm doing premium content every Wednesday. I'm going to keep doing these live streams. I think Thursdays are a good day for these for me. So I'll probably try to keep doing these. So subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when I go live. And I appreciate you tuning out. I appreciate you guys listening to me and engaging with us however you can. And yeah, I guess don't fat shame Rihanna and be nice to people, I guess would be the takeaways. So thank you guys for watching this, and I will see you again soon.